Welcome. You happy Friday. I'm hoping that wait a minute, I got an echo. All right, hopefully the echo is gone now. Can I get a sound check to make sure I'm not too loud and the echo is actually cleared up before someone one of my mods? Yeah. Yes, Mrs. Cassandra, you nailed it. The brand new opening that I did actually play on the first time on Wednesday was done by Mocking Media. His style is their style actually is very, very recognizable. It's big, it's bold, and I absolutely love it. I'm honored. I'm honored that they give me a nod and work with me on it, and I'm pleased to show and promote their work. Y'all should check them out on their channel. Yes, and hit them up if you want some intros and outros. I heard they might be interested. You never know. Hmm. Thank you, Mrs. Cassandra. Hi, Kyle's Goldfish. I hope you're well also. And to welcome to everybody in the welcome autistic. Nice to see you, Icarus and Godless Granny and all of those coming in. It's gonna be there is a trigger warning. Um and I've decided to use a trigger warning not because I'm going to coach the language, not because I'm going to not speak directly, honestly, and just factually about the things that are being said and going on in this Masterson trial. And yes, this whole episode is going to be about that. And once a week, there will be a whole episode and maybe two in regards to the Masterson trial. I can't cover it live. I wanted to. It's not. You're not able to. But we are blessed with the fact that Tony Ortega is in the courtroom every day, putting out lots of content to tell us exactly what is happening, what the judge is saying, what the defense is saying, what the prosecution is saying, what the witnesses are saying. Okay. Not word for word. Okay. It's not like a transcript. It's not the same as reading the actual transcripts or being there ourselves. But I have to say, having him there is a blessing because it keeps us going now, like now, instead of waiting for the mass media to get a hold of it and to pick it apart or do whatever, or only give one side of it. Um, you all know that Tony Ortega has been reporting on Scientology and Scientology lawsuits in particular for a long time. This is how I know him. This is how I get a lot of my Scientology information in regards to what lawsuits are pending. He's very free with the information of case numbers and this so that you can go get your own information. Um, some of his stuff is behind a paywall, some of it, not all of it, but he's been very free with the information coming forward, and I'm not going to put it up on the screen. I will share his videos so that he gets the views and he gets, his name out there. But as far as the word for word what he's saying in some of his articles and things like that, it will be up to you to go to his website to look for them and go. But basically, we're going to condense them somewhat and give you the nuts and bolts of it. He's doing the work and deserves a lot of credit for it. And those of you that follow me and have been here for more than a year and a half, like, that's how I am. That's how I am. Like, if they've done it, they get the credit for it. I'm absolutely going to tell you exactly where I get all of my information. I share the sources. I share it all because it's all open. I'm just giving you opinion here. I'm just talking about something that's important to me. This case covers a lot of issues legally that I'm very interested in. Very interested in the hook of the time frame, the hook of Scientology, the hook of actually having to do three cases at once just to get them presented. Okay, there's a lot here, and it's going to cover a lot of different things that I'm very interested in. Um, this is my jam. I love this legal stuff. And hopefully you'll come with me, not for the salacious content about it being in a sexual assault case, because yes, that's it. And it's not just a civil suit, which they do have in regards to the harassment. The three plaintiffs in this criminal case against Danny Masterson are also suing Scientology and he for the harassment and the obstruction of keeping them coming forward. Okay, and the things that happened to them. So there's a civil case too that's going on in regards to this. Right now, we're going to focus on mostly day 6, 7, and 8 which would be Wednesday, Thursday, and today, Friday. Court is wrapping up. Tony Ortega's been reporting all day. So we do know some of what's going on, but on 6 and 7. And just to give you a brief on days 1 through 5, actually, what had happened, we did talk about Jane Doe being the first witness. We did talk about the opening statements already in the prior video in the beginning of the week. That video has a new thumbnail on it. Don't let it confuse you. There's now a playlist for this trial so that you want to go back just for the trial information. The same thing that we did with Depp Heard with trial information, and how we keep the Manson information kind of up to date the same way, because they're going to be bigger trials. This is going to go on for, I think, a few more weeks. Judge Almeida, I will say, is keeping things fast on track. The recap briefly is that Judge Almeida sat that jury through questions and everything in 2 days, 3 days. We had our first witnesses on the stand on Tuesday. We had Jane Doe on the stand on Tuesday. Okay. They're not messing. We had opening statements in the witness on the very first day. It's progressing. She's trying to keep it on track. She's fast forwarding it to where she's not messing around. She's used to big cases. She's used to contrary cases. She's used to cases that get a lot of press, big gangland cases, big murder cases. She knows her stuff. And she's dealing right now with a prosecution and a defense that are at odds about the mentioning of Scientology. And she has reprimanded them both already. In the beginning, she mentioned she did go after Mueller for his opening statement for bringing up Scientology things here, there, everywhere, and throwing the name around, getting really close to the line. Her ruling in October, the beginning of October, was very clear. Scientology will be mentioned. After all, Scientology inserted themselves. So did the defense, the previous defense team, actually inserted the Book of Ethics into evidence. And Scientology as they're not allowed to actually say anything about this because we want this actually tossed, because they have a contract with Scientology that says that they can't speak on any of this. And it even does apply to them when they leave the church of Scientology. Okay, so that all happened. Now that's a lot of Scientology, right? So how do you do that in the beginning of a case and then say, whoop, rewrite, let's just forget all of that happened and let's just walk away from Scientology like they're not even here? Because all of a sudden the new defense team realizes that just the word Scientology comes with a connotation. And it's true, it does. I mean, he's got a point. All right, they got a point. Danny Masterson is a Scientologist. Danny Masterson was protected by being a Scientologist from being reported on for alleged assault by all 3 victims. All 3 victims claimed that the reason they didn't come forward was their relationship with Scientology. Judge Almeida has clearly stated that they're allowed to talk about that relationship and why they felt the way they felt, that they couldn't come forward. What led to that? So Scientology has to be it has to be mentioned. Okay, the whole reason we're in the courtroom this late date is in regards to that. So it's just frivolous for him to actually claim, yes, 3 times that we need a mistrial. 3 times he's been at her already, Judge Almeida, and I mean Philip Cohen, the defense attorney, has been claiming we need a mistrial because, hey, they're going too hard on Scientology. Well, the only ways they did it in day 1 through 5 was, well, the witness on the very first day, she mentioned wogs. It's a term that Scientologists use. It's a derogatory term. She said it because Scientologists say it, because she's an ex-Scientologist, and everybody knew it. But, hey, Cohen got offensive. He goes, we can't talk about Scientology using language like that. And then she said, but, Scientologists, they think that people that disagree with men are the enemy. We need to treat them like the enemy. He took exception to that too. Mistrial. She said that Scientology thinks everyone's an enemy. That's prejudicial. Sorry. This is her perception. This is what she was in. This is how she understands her relationship with Scientology. And basically, and I'm not quoting here because, it's going to be my language. Basically, Judge Almeida said, sorry, boo. There ain't nothing you can do about that. So, like, she told them both. She admonished them both on the very first day. She said, "Listen, Mueller, you're getting too close to the line." And she said, "Yo, Cohen, you can object every time the word Scientology comes up, but all you're going to get is sanction because the word Scientology is coming up." In her own language, of course. So she was much nicer about it. I'm joking a little bit because, like, I mean, I do give the defense credit. He jumping like a hot jumping bean over there on any little thing he can to try to get a better view for his client, and as he should. I got to give him some credit for that. I really do. He's working it hard. Okay, but basically, besides both of them getting talked to by the judge, we did have the actual retelling from the witness. Prosecution called her up and retold both incidences. We went over that. We went over the consent and the issue about the first issue, that there were no charges in the first event charged against Danny Masterson. It's the second event that happened of um, alleged sexual assault that without consent. Sex without consent, it's assault, period. Okay. Or she is actually claiming part of that is the actual chargeable event. That's the one she made the report on. And we went through the first couple of days with the prosecution actually having her tell her story. One thing to note as a reminder is that during that, she did get very upset at the second event during the retelling of the second event, during the part where she says she woke up and that it was during the act. She knew she didn't consent. She fought back. A pillow was used to somewhat suffocate her. She passed out again. She woke up again. She fought back. He literally choked her till she passed out again. At the telling of this part, and then asking how she felt, and she starts to say that she felt that her life was threatened, that she was going to die, she got very emotional. And the judge removed the jury, and she was very emotional at the time. The jury is stepping out. But there's a bone of contention here from the defense because they're saying that as the jury was leaving, that the witnesses, Jane Doe one's mic was hot, and her support person is there because, yes, as in California, they are very kind to victims of assault, especially those claiming, charges. There's only a certain way you can treat them. They're allowed to have support people. They're allowed to have somebody there the whole time. They're allowed to take breaks. They give them a little bit more leeway as far as because it's such an emotional, stressful situation. They actually act like it is what it is. They're not giving them special treatment. They're actually treating them with the decency that they deserve going through this. Okay. I mean, so she's talking to the support person, and you can't hear the words. Everybody in the courtroom says it. The judge says she didn't hear anything. She's right next to them. Okay. The jurors claim they didn't hear anything. Most of the staff is claiming they don't hear anything. Tony Ortega says they don't hear words. Like when they say they don't hear anything, they don't mean clear, concise words. They could hear that they were talking, like blah, 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 kind of like Charlie Brown's teacher, blah 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 blah, like that, or noise like a muffling, like whispering, whatever. But they didn't hear actual conversation. No one did. But the defense did. Goldstein popped up as soon as you brought that jerk, right when they're gonna go off break, and says, "We've got an issue. We've got a serious issue here. That mic was hot, and now the jury heard how upset she was and what she said." And the judge goes, "No, no, I'm sorry. I've talked to the staff. I went through what happened. I clearly remember the last juror leaving the room before that incident happened. So no, 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 we're not going there." I have to give her credit. She pushed back great. Okay. Now, even if the mic was a little hot, words would have had to been heard. That's not an automatic mistrial. It's not an automatic thing. It's not a they're looking for any little thing. That defense is so hyper focused on details. And this is only speculation on my part. This is just from the first 2 days of trial. I would say they're so focused on these minor details. They are looking for a mistrial. They're looking for appeal reasons already. I'll bet you they got a whole notepad full of them. Every little thing. I bet you they are writing the appeal right now. Now, I think that's smart in a way. I think they know that Scientology has a lot of prejudice on it. and it could go one way. But I also have to give Judge Almeida a lot of credit, because she's allowing things also that are for Danny Masterson's benefit. She's being as unbiased as possible. And I have to admit, some of the things that are happening are a little worrisome on whether we will get actual guilty verdicts. Because, as in all of these sexual assault trials, the victim ends up being on trial. And that's not fair, but it is the defense. Because if somebody's accusing you of doing something, the first thing you're going to do is say, no, I didn't, because they did this. No, I didn't. I didn't do it. It's not like that. That's not what happened. Okay. And they're coming at her pretty hard. Now, in the state of California, they do have protections for them. You're not allowed to talk about how they dress or this or that or leading up to things. You're definitely not allowed to talk about prior sexual relations that you've had with other people or your sexual history. And apparently, a couple days in, and I'm jumping up just because this is like I'm talking about Judge Almeida here and how impressed I am with one judge. She handled an incident where Philip Cohen actually went through some of the testimony that Jane Doe was talking about when she was actually reporting her case to the police department. And believe me, there's a whole much more I'm going to have to talk about that. But one particular instance was that she told the story that she'd pulled over to the side of the road and she had to pee. And she peed. Well, he's questioning the fact, well, if your prior testimony says you weren't drunk, you didn't drink before you got to Danny Masterson's house the night of the second event, late in the evening, and you weren't drinking, and the first drink you had was the drink that he gave you, the pink one. Like, what? Is that normal for you to like pull over and pee on the side of the road? Like, that doesn't sound like normal behavior. Well, Judge Almeida like pulled him back. She said, no. She said, can I remind you that women can pee after a glass of water? These are not her words exactly, but she was quite snarky about it. She pulled him back and said, no, you're inferring that she was drunk. And she's saying she didn't. And that goes. And you can pee on the side of the road. If it was a man, we wouldn't be questioning that he peed on the side of the road. When you gotta go, you gotta go. Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna say to all of YouTube and all of you right here in the chat, if I have to go, I'm pulling over on the side of the road and I'm peeing. And it doesn't mean I'm drunk. It means I peed on the side of the road, period. But he is actually making connotations like that. At the same time, and this is what struck me, that he is on the benefit that the prosecution, Mueller, during all of the testimony of Jane Doe, never once said that Danny Masterson drugged her. Never once said that could allegedly have happened. He could have went a little bit there, but because there's no forensic evidence of it, okay, because there is like, we don't have the drink. Nobody took samples. Remember, the testimony for all of this is years and years later. There is no physical evidence. There is no DNA samples. There are no physical evidence of drugs. There is only the testimony of the people who were around, okay? Her friends that were around, her friends that saw her behavior, people at the party that saw her, okay? Her testimony, okay? Her recollection of it, okay? So they're not going there. They're not going there because because they can't, they want to stick to the facts. What they can prove is facts on what what Jane Doe is actually saying, okay, and what people around her during that time that she had anything to do with that were at that party or dealt with her afterwards, what everybody did and said. Period. Some physical things like bruising, which is going to come up. They went for that too. They showed pictures of her. She has 2 pictures that were entered into evidence that show her in a bikini, and they're questioning on the fact, were you really that hurt? Were you really that hurt? I'm sorry, but I agree with how offended Tony Ortega was at that. Like, I'm offended too. Because her injuries are on the inside. I mean, I'm sorry, but the inside of her rectum in her vagina are not hanging on the outside of that bathing suit. You don't know, dude. Like, you don't know. Now, I know he's doing his job, but the judge was a little bit offended. He's offending, he's taking the risk of offending the jury also about that. Now, I understand they can look for bruises. She said she had bruises on her hip. She said she had bruises on her arm. This is why they're going to show the pictures, and I'm all for it. They should. They blew them up, okay? They can't prove they're not there, okay? They can't prove that she wasn't injured in any way, Okay. And my point would be, and I hope when Mueller comes forward, it'll be a little bit more, is that, does she have to be banged up? Does she have to have a broken lip, a busted eye? Does she have to have physical bruises to prove rape? Because rape is about consent, not, oh, how I ended up afterwards. Yeah. Missing the point there. And it's not somebody who thinks of it that way. He's not making any points with me. He's actually making Danny look bad there, in my opinion. In my opinion. Okay. Also, I like to say that he's trying really hard for his client. He really is. But one thing that he's doing over the last 2 days, when he's cross-examination of Jane Doe, okay, while he is going over her testimony to the police department, and that is a hot mess. When Jane Doe is reporting in her testimony that when she went to the police department the first time, she was dealing with an agent of the police department, the officer at the desk, who seemed like they didn't know much what was going on. Wasn't even clear that she was speaking English, is one statement that she made. And that her police report, she believes, is not accurate. She believes things are missing out of it. One of the more important things that Cohen, the defense attorney Cohen, is going for is the lack of the mention of the gun from the second scenario that she portrayed in her testimony. There's no mention of it in the police report, the first one, okay, from this particular officer. It comes in later during interviews and things like that, but not in that first report, okay? So that's not there. Also, there is some of the language, some of the things that she said, like he's going for it. Like he's really, really going for it. But I have to give Jane Doe credit. She, when questioned about this stuff, is keeping very calm. She is saying yes and no answers, or that's not what I believe happened. She even says things like very carefully. She says, to her great credit, she said this. She said, "That is not how I read that. That is not what I believe that says." These are things that the jury needs to hear from her, that that's not how I interpret what's going on here. That is not what I said. That is not how I meant it. She's giving the other side of it instead of getting upset and saying, "You're twisting my words. You're this." She's not attacking them. She's carefully just putting out what she actually felt and said, and what she believes she said, at the same time as admitting there's going to be slight things back and forth. There's going to be, because there were multiple reports, there was multiple interviews, there was multiple times where she had to recant a story that, by all consideration of everybody involved, they have to admit was very traumatic. There's no doubt about that. You can't listen to her retelling and think it didn't happen. Think that she doesn't believe with everything she has that it didn't happen, that it did happen. Okay. Regardless of whether there was consent or not, the actual incident happened. This is how she feels about it. It didn't have consent. Danny feels differently. He feels there was consent. Danny's attorney is upsetting me by repeatedly mentioning I don't know why he's saying it to her, but when he's questioning the police report, he's saying things like, when you were recanting this issue, is that the part where Danny's member was in your anus, close to your anus, touching your anus? He keeps repeating it over and over again. And this is the part where she was like so upset on one of the parts where she was so upset on the stand. And I'm wondering, like, why do you keep mentioning it? This is the part that most jurors are going to find the offensive. This is where the consent in the first episode didn't exist. Why do you keep playing it up? Why do you keep playing it up? Like, I'm a little confused by that. A lot of people are from what Tony says. He's talking to other people watching the trial from the courtroom, and everybody's just like scratching their head, like, "Hey, like, why, dude? Like, is that intimidation? Is that just like, I don't know. I don't know." That was confusing. I don't think he's doing Danny Masterson a service there. I think by the more he brings that up, the more he will be turning people away from sympathy to Danny Masterson in that case. Not that I think there's anything wrong with, and I'm not kink shaming here. If you all see my other shows, you know they ain't about that. It's not about that. It focuses on the fact that in that first instance, it kind of showed, at least to me, blind, not a lawyer, not a paralegal, just looking at it. mm, It looked like Danny knows the difference between yes and no. Okay. And yet he stopped on the first, but he didn't stop on the second. Um, it showed that she had made her decision that she didn't want that, and yet it still happened in episode number 2. So the more he keeps mentioning it, it's that's what keeps popping up in my head. Well, yeah, why don't you just keep hammering it in that he knew better? That's what I think when he says it. I don't know about the jury. I could not place myself in their shoes right now. I think just watching the defense and the prosecution go back and forth, and Almeida just like having a tennis racket hitting them both in the head like every couple of minutes is enough, because that's what I visually like in my head when I'm reading what Tony Ortega is writing about the day to day. That's what I see going on, because she's admonishing them left and right, like everything that they bring up about the language that gets used, about what they can say and not say. She's really towing that line, and she's telling them, no, 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 no. She did go at Cohen hard for the pee thing, okay, for, the peeing on the street. And she is also, about anything to do with prior relations or anything like that. And even about the report. As she's going with the asked and answered, she's like knocking them away. Like when Jane Doe actually answers the question properly and whatever, and he keeps hammering in, she's like, mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. These asked and answers objections, they're going through, because nope, don't keep doing that. Like don't keep trying to twist. Like, she answered you. That's it. That's about it. Okay, so before we get into the actual what came up, God, there's more. Let me just check the chat to see where you guys are with questions. Is the lawyer a Scientologist? I am not aware of the lawyer, the current, you mean Karen Goldstein in Philip Cohen for the defense. If that's what you mean, I am not sure if they are Scientologists. I am not sure. I do not believe. I think that would be a conflict of interest, because they're actually both named. I don't think they work for Scientology, but I would have to check into that, Alice. It's a very good question, and I don't have an answer for you. Hey, Mocking, nice to see you. Okay. Let me see. Is he getting off asking those questions? Mrs. Cassandra, I don't know. He hates the word Scientology, but he seems to love the word anal. I don't know. But hey, I digress. I don't know what's going on. He does sound like he's kind of mean. You mean it's not Amber Heard with her broken ribs running on the beach? No, it's not. But there are no great big physical bruises. Okay, but she's not claiming that. Okay, in her defense, and I don't want to sound biased. I'm saying, they should bring pictures up to challenge anything that she says. If she says she has bruises and they don't find any bruises, they should ask about that. But when she says most of her injuries are all emotional trauma and physically claimed to be bleeding, and I kid you not, she talks about the after effects of the episode 2 as being bleeding from both orifices. I don't need to name them again. You know what we're talking about here. She was torn in both. She couldn't sit in a bath without pain. She could barely walk. She was crawling. Okay. These are internal. This is not, you don't have to have bruises like all over your body for that to have happened. Okay. And for him to insinuate without a bruise it didn't was a little much to take. Yeah, that's biased. Yeah, I'll admit that statement's biased. He didn't win me over with that one. Okay. Wrecker says, I would put him up in that box and ask him if he was a scat fetish. Nothing wrong if he does, but the way he goes on about it is just disrespectful. Yes, and Judge Almeida, to her credit, she did say so. She said, enough of it. Okay. Thank you, Granny. I appreciate this. Here's a godless Granny is in legal, and she says it would not be a conflict of to be of the same religion. Exactly. I don't think to be a Scientologist would. I'm just not sure if they worked with Scientology at all in a legal capacity before. That's what I wanted to like kind of check out. But yeah, not being the same religion. I mean, because come on, this Christian, Christians representing Christians all over the place. Atheists, no, it wouldn't be. Yeah. Hmm. Obviously, we're not getting to watch live to judge for ourselves, but did the lawyer keep repeating these sensitive details about body parts to desensitize the jury to the disgusting nature of it? This could be a point. Yes, actually, Kyle Skullfish, thank you for bringing me back to it because, yeah, that could be like when I'm confused about why are you like it's making them look bad. Is it also so they get used to the word of they get used to the words. This is what he keeps saying. He keeps saying the word penis. Yes, I'm saying it, YouTube. He said penis repeatedly. He said anus repeatedly. He said rectum. He said anal. He said penetration. He said it all. Okay. And he kept saying it. He keeps bringing it up and he uses the real words like we do here. And yeah, could that be to desensitize the jury to the first act that was actually explained and then the second where she got so upset? Yeah, make it more the language will, but I see it doing more harm than good. But you're right, it could be part of the defense's tactic to take the decency of the act away. So it's not so abrupt, so harsh to them, desensitize them, like you say. Very good point, Kyle, and thank you. And I'm so glad you're here. I am. Hmm. Just like Camille Vasquez only asked Amber about the bottle to show the jury if it was broken, her injuries would have been horrific. But Camille did it to get her point across, then left it alone. She did. She made her point, and then she didn't go over it and over it and over it. Camille did not mention vaginal penetration by a foreign object 15 times in the same cross examination. No, she didn't. She had much more respect than that. Okay. She did. Mm. Defense attorneys, such as this case, are another reason that victims are hesitant to report and take it to trial. It is true, but judges like Judge Almeida are the reason that they really should trust the system. She is being amazing, in my opinion. She is towing the line in unbiased, letting the facts come out and protecting the witness based on, California laws, always, you may know, are a little more protective of witnesses in these cases about what they can bring in and what they can't. And Judge Almeida is making sure that that's known and that gets done. She's bang up. And you know what's really impressive about this, and I wish you guys could see it. And Kyle's and Kim, like I know you guys would love this fact, is that when she tells them no, 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 she cites precedent. She cites case law at them. Like you should know better, blah, 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 blah. Did you read it? Like, and I'm like, oh, she's schooling them. She's like, continuing education on a daily basis. I'm a fan. I wish I could peek into her courtroom a little more often. You know, um, that's the way it should be done. And I'm very impressed with it. She's got tough stuff to deal with. I think anyone would agree. This is not easy to balance. Trying to get the prosecution side and letting the witnesses speak the way they want, and also to keep the defense happy that there's not going to be a mistrial, and not to prejudice against the defendant too much. But all right, let me get to some of the other things that happened. That's basically the recap from prior. It took all that time, plus how we feel about some of the abominations and some of the things that the judge has been doing. But there are some other things that happened. You may be reading in articles all over that based on the what's coming out right now in how she reported to the police and everything like that. Other things started. Before that, she did go to Scientology and try to get permission to talk about this to the police. Okay, that was a whole thing there. They went on and on. She told her part about it. She was questioned about it by Cohen. She's questioned about it by Mueller. They went back and forth with that a little bit. There was a lot of objections there about language and mentioning procedure and mentioning, and the judge again had to step in and say, you cannot. Every time Scientology is mentioned, you cannot object. This is what happened. This is what she's saying happened. Her relationship with Scientology is fair game. Like, I don't know how many times she has to report it. She keeps saying, go back to October 3rd. I ruled on this. Her perception of her relationship with Scientology and why she felt she was held back and why this was reported so much late. That is all fair game. That is allowed to come in. That is her personal experience with that religion, with that relationship. She is allowed to speak on it. You can question her about it, but don't say it's not admissible. Stop it. Stop it right now. She's getting tired. This was day 5 and 6 that was going on so much. And she tired already, and we had 2 more days of the week to go. Yeah, she she was not happy. But anyway, they're talking about being delayed to do it and all of that. And she did get permission to file a civil suit if she feels she was wronged. Well, she went to the police anyway because she knew she must have got good legal advice. Because I don't know if there's actually anything to it, but what's been written, and maybe Granny can help me a little bit with this. But if she's going to go for a civil suit and say that they held her back or whatever, for the delay and that they caused her harassment and harm, a police report would be beneficial in that case as to she attempted to try to have something done against somebody she's claiming a criminal act happened on her. She did get legal. It's obvious she got legal advice because she didn't really listen to Scientology, and she went to the police anyway, and she filed a report. And it's amazing that they said that she could file a civil suit, but she couldn't go to the police and report Danny. But she could sue him and say all this in court. Like, the civil suit was going to say the same stuff anyway. So, like, I don't get that, But they didn't want her to go to the police. She did anyway. This started a whole big thing about she got a warning letter. She got talked to. She got counseling. And here's another part that came up that was quite distressing. We know that Tony Ortega has been following Scientology for quite a while, and I'm clear about that. His reporting may be a little biased. He's doing his best to report exactly what happens the best he can, but he is allowed to say how he feels about it, and he does in his little videos, and he gets really upset about certain things because he knows a lot about the particulars of how this particular religion treats members and ex-members. And that is the big concern here, is that this big push to silence everybody in regards to this, they don't want it to be part of the trial, but it can't help but be part of the trial. It is something that's out there and known, okay? And it's something that's been happening to these 3 Jane Does, and that's what the civil suit is about. That's what the delay was about. But anyway, I digress because I'm just going to talk about a Scientology attorney by the name of Kendrick Moxon, who went to Jane Doe 1's father's house to discuss things with him. He brought a non-disclosure agreement that he wanted signed. Scientology was trying to work out an agreement with Jane Doe 1 to kind of keep this out of to kind of work on let's not talk about this. Let's settle this. Let's agree to disagree. Let's just work on this. Okay. And so they have the conversation. It is part of what they do. Jane Doe 1 is being threatened with expulsion from Scientology against her will, becoming a suppressive, becoming a person that they can't have anything to do with. Her own family, if there's still Scientologists, would not be able to talk to her. No one in Scientology would. She would be shunned. She would be, from previous reports, allegedly, she could be harassed. She would be targeted. She would be treated as an enemy of Scientology. This is part of the trial, okay? Because there's testimony now that Kendrick Moxon talked to her father, and he made a statement that Tony Ortega kind of lost it a little bit about, and I don't blame him because I'm aware of the situation. And I'll leave it up to you guys. I don't want to be biased. I'm just going to say the statement the way Tony said it, the way he said he heard it in the court. But I would wait for the transcripts to see if it was actually reported that way, that this is what Kendrick Moxon said to Jane Doe 1's father. During the conversation that they were having in regards to settling this, coming to an agreement, he said to her father, we need to come to some kind of agreement with this so you do not lose your daughter the way I lost mine. And that was the quote that Tony said, and that kind of blew his mind, because he said not many people are going to remember, and it's a shame. But in 2000, Kendrick Moxon's daughter, Stacy, is claimed to commit suicide by throwing herself on a live transformer and roasting herself to death over being questioned in Scientology and treated as a suppressive and losing her family and all of that. To throw that in Jane Doe's father's face like that is probably one of the cruelest things I've ever heard. To go there as a lawyer to get an NDA signed and use your daughter's suicide to intimidate someone is disgusting. That's my personal opinion. Yes, I'm a little biased about that personal opinion on this subject, and I'll own it. I think that was wrong. But that's Kendrick Moxon's, and we haven't seen it in writing yet, but that's how it's being reported that happened in the courtroom. And based on some things, I guess it's easy to believe that they said that. But the fact is that Stacy is alleged to commit suicide in 2000, and that they were there to get the NDA, and the NDA did get signed. Danny Masterson paid Jane Doe $400,000 to keep quiet. That's reported. That's all over right now. You're going to see articles about it for the next couple of days. That came out in court. Okay. I know. Okay, thank you, Godless, for your answer on the other thing, Granny. But anyway, on that, I don't want to be salacious about it. That is disturbing to me. It's a fact I want out there because Tony's reporting it. I agree with him. It should be out there. This is the stuff that's going on. This is why I kind of want to protect all of the Jane Does and not have everything televised. But because of what's going on with the defense and because of who's involved with this case, and I don't mean Danny Masterson. I think he needs to be protected also. But because of the interference of something as large an entity as Scientology, regardless of how I feel about them, their largeness, their interference, their obstruction, everything involved with it was so anti-justice system. This is why I wanted the cameras to zoom, and this is why I'll keep saying what happens like that. These little things that keep happening, like that. The hypocrisy of the whole thing. Okay, you can also still deny after a civil suit, as it only need to be proven more likely than not. After a criminal trial, there is no reasonable doubt. Exactly, on whether he's guilty or not. Yeah, I get that, on the alleged charges of the event. Thank you very much. So actually having that police report was probably beneficial, I'm sure. Yep. Yes, at best I can guess, it's a compromise. I get it. Okay. And yeah, it was very distressing always. That was hard to hear, and I don't blame Tony for getting as upset as he did in his reporting. On that, I do want to give you guys. I want to remind you again. This is Tony's. This is Tony's website. And these are the two small videos he did on the 19th and the 20th. Today's is not out yet, and you will hear how he feels about some of the things that we are talking about today. This is not his Substack long articles or anything. These are the short videos. Hopefully, when I checked, they were open for people to actually be able to view. And that is why I'm sharing them. Give him the views. Let his voice get out there also. Like I said, I'll share the sources that I get this stuff all the time, just so that you can get your direct opinion from it also. Okay. Hey, Midbit, nice to see you. All right. So to go on in some other things that came forward, they're now repeatedly bringing up the police department and the statements that were made to the police. Officer Reyes, who's on the witness list, is actually there's some issues there about her actually telling Jane Doe 1 not to speak on this. There is some controversy back and forth on whether she inserted herself on keeping people quiet, and maybe she has some blame. The defense would like you to believe that that statement by the officer when she came forward means more than what Scientology did to her for months. That's where they're going. From what I see. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, that's their hook there. Like, no, no, no. Officer Reyes mentioned don't talk about it. So why can't Scientology say don't talk about it? Like, yeah, as if it's apples to apples. But no. That's apples to oranges. One statement from Reyes is one thing. Repeated harassment that she has actually reported and talked about and is actually doing a civil suit about and has put in her testimony multiple occasions of being told that you can't have relationships with someone and then file a complaint because that doesn't exist. You can't file a complaint about anybody who's higher up or higher, more advanced in Scientology than you are, like Danny is. Okay. And no, nope, didn't happen. You were there, you were naked. That's not rape. Yeah, these are the things, okay. And we're supposed to believe that what Officer Reyes said about don't speak to anyone. She means no coercion, no speaking to other like stuff like that. She's like, to try to get your testimony as clean as possible. Like she's talking like a police detective, just trying to keep things clear. Okay, I don't think she meant don't speak about this ever to anybody, but hey, it's open for interpretation, I guess, from both sides. I can see it. But anyway, they're both on, both of the officers, the first officer and Reyes, they're all on the witness list, as I showed you. In the first video, there's a long list of people from the police department and investigators that actually dealt with the actual claims that Jane Doe 1, 2, and 3 made. Actually, they all went to the police eventually. Okay, and how that process went and what happened, and it is that the defense should be looking at it and make sure that everything was okay. But I will say that at this point, it does appear that Philip Cohen is focusing on very small details here and there and trying to discredit Jane Doe, which is standard procedure. I'm not going to say he's doing something wrong. You go with the witness who's accusing your client. You go with them. You try to find loopholes in their testimony. You try to discredit some of what they're saying, because if what actually the accusation and what they're saying is coming across to the jury as true, you're in trouble. So you got to try to waver it. You've got to try to put the other side on there. You've got to try to put some doubt there as to what's been saying and point out any discrepancies. Now, there are discrepancies in statements like the gun not being in the first report. Now, to a defense attorney, that's a big discrepancy. Can it be justified or can it be explained? I don't want to say justified. I want to use the word explained. Can it be explained as to why it's not there? Yes. And the prosecution and Jane Doe 1 did do their best to try to explain why. Whether or not the jury weighs a lot on that or not. But since he is not being accused of threatening her life with that gun, she clearly stated he didn't, that all he told her to do was shut up, that he was brandishing it because he heard someone perhaps out in the hallway. And that's why he grabbed it, not against her. So, like, there's not an assault with a deadly weapon charge here that they have to defend against. So, how that is going to pertain, I don't know, except for to take away credibility that the rest of her story isn't as credible because of that small detail. If you read the testimony of what she says happened, and it's not only in the courtroom, it is in multiple articles. They've been very public. It's in the civil suit. It's everywhere. You can read the details of what she is testifying to. um, out in the open publicly under Jane Doe's civil suits. You can read them. Now, they're not closed off. Mm. And I don't want to go over the actual details of all of that again, only as it pertains to when they are going to object about certain parts of it. Then I think it's pertinent and worth mentioning, in and being direct about it. Okay. All right. The other, there are there's even more. Okay, so we're only a couple of days in. Okay. You know, it, day 7, which was a Thursday, today's day 8, was mostly about the LAPD, as I said. Okay. Um, there was a lot back and forth about when did Danny apologize to her about what happened. The defense is trying to say he apologized right away. And Jane Doe keeps saying, no, that's not how I read it. That's not how he said it. That's not how I'm interpreting it. He apologized much later, because it is mentioned in the report that, Danny said he was sorry. She did make that statement, but she didn't have a when and a context to it. Okay. Then, when the defense presents to her the report so that she can read it again, he makes a big deal about how long it took her to read it and why did she read every detail of it. But he's asking her to use it to refresh her memory about what she said, but then admonishes her in front of the jury for actually reading every word of it as if she needed to. Like he's trying to make the reference that she's kind of like she's insinuating some stuff here that she's gonna parrot it or whatever, but she doesn't. To her credit, she doesn't parrot anything that's in there. She used it to refresh why he is asking the questions, and that is when she very clearly started answering yes and no. And that's not how I read it. And that's not what it says to me. That's not how I said it. She's clearly pushing back calmly, succinctly to him. No, no. Like, nice try. I have to give her credit. I do, because it's got to be absolutely impossible with all of this, you know. Judge Almeida called him out several times and called it hearsay about things that he was saying that was heard that she said. Um, they're talking mostly about the apology because of things that the actual officers said about the apology. That it led that there at the conclusion there may have been an apology, meaning that they spoke. Okay. Um, Jane Doe clearly states, Judge, that Detective Reyes is not indicating the time of when that apology happened. You have to remember, she's reporting this years later. So they're not talking about the day of the assault the whole time. Her reporting of it includes all the time that passed, but Cohen is focusing on it as if it's just that day. He wants the jury to look at it that all of these misstatements exist because she's only reporting the day there, and that's not so. Her recollection is everything that happened afterwards, the week after, the day after, months after, a year after. It's all in there, you know and she's being solid about the reports, saying that's not how I meant it, that there's no time there, there is no, I didn't specify when, and neither did Detective Reyes, and that's true. Okay. He then talked about the fact that she was in his bed when the second event happened. The judge went let that go on for a little while, but eventually, no. Mhm. Especially when it got to the point where afterwards, when she left and everything, and who she talked to and what was going on, you know um it was clear that the defense was definitely focused on language and terminology. Her saying pulled versus pulling, this does matter as far as position or what you're in, but she clearly repeatedly says, I was fuzzy. I was drunk. I couldn't control myself. I felt like I was out of it. I can't recall the exact details. She is saying it admittedly. She's not trying to hide it. Mm, mm. And especially when they go over the police reports. He wants to focus on these small details back and forth, and she keeps saying, I don't recall. Then he gets her to look at the report, and then he picks on her for reading the report as if she needs it. And then he starts focusing on little terminology that's used here and there and reporting factors. Nothing really came up, like especially about the P thing. And I'm going to say that again because Judge Almeida, like, her quote on it, like from what this is a third hand, obviously, but Judge Almeida just stopped him dead, and she's had to do this quite a time. She says, like, excuse me. She said, why would you ask if she peed in the street or dressed modestly? This court is concerned you're in violation of the statute. And then she repeats it, and she's talking about the California statute and how you treat assault victims on the stand, prior, histories, how they're dressed, whether it's called the asked for it routine. Okay. Yeah, they're against that in California. They want you to only talk about the facts. So Almeida says, why would you ask that? She said she had nothing to drink. She told the LAPD she peed in the street. That's unusual. I did not ask the question having any sexual conduct, and I represent that to the court. If she said that I peed in the street all the time, that's fine. But I think it's appropriate when the whole line, remember the government going into all the things about how much she had drunk and what amounts, I believe I'm allowed to follow up with the circumstantial evidence about having drunk and needing to relieve her bladder. He's trying to insinuate that she had to be drunk to do that. And this was Philip Cohen who said that. Okay. And Judge Maida said that's irrelevant and cites that people might need to pee because they've been drinking a lot of water or soft drinks doesn't mean drunk. With regards to both incidents, she indicates she drank before both incidences. She said that she did have a drink. Okay. She also indicates that her tolerance got better. Okay. And so that Cohen just keeps going back at the judge. Okay. He says, I'm not a toxicologist, but one way you get more tolerance is by drinking more. So now Olmedo cites case law at him. And she said the people are not even alleging that she had been drugged because there's no evidence of it. So back off. Stop it. Stop it. Why would you insinuate she was drunk before she got there when you don't have a test that says she was drunk before she got there? She's basically flowing up that flag saying, case law here. Look, they're giving you the courtesy of not doing that. Why are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And he says, well, I'm sorry, Your Honor, but the government may not have said drugged or mollied or roofied, but the pattern of evidence clearly makes that inference. Okay. The evidence is the evidence, dude. It's why you're in court. They say something happened to them. Okay. The pattern of the evidence is their recollection of what happened. Witnesses who said she drank one drink. Okay. Her testimony, she only had it that it tasted funny and that she lost control afterwards. People are allowed to make some inference about that. They have life experience. Every jury on there does. Everyone. There's no way you can get a jury that's not going to think that. Because this is just, the pattern of the evidence. You're right. Okay. But if we got rid of the patterns of evidence in every trial because they look bad for the defense, we wouldn't have trials. I don't know. You correct me if I'm wrong, but come on, dude. We're talking about absolutely left and right, like what the defense and the prosecution do. They are allowed, but they are at least not using terms that they can't prove. And so you accusing her of being drunk when you can't prove it, I mean, maybe the same courtesy. And the judge is getting annoyed, because now he wants to go back and forth with her about the sizes of the drinks and all of that. And I don't blame him because he's trying to get her recollection the best that she can. But repeatedly, she's proving that she does have, in some areas, really good recollection. And in other areas, is willing to admit that things are fuzzy, that she doesn't. And she's not going to reattest that she does. And she just keeps saying calmly and succinctly her recollection of everything that happened, her belief of everything that happened and how it did. And she's being very patient about it. That was most of the testimony, was the defense go uh, with Jane Doe. Okay, and in day 8 we get redirect. Okay, it becomes clear that it's going to be almost impossible to keep Scientology like out of it, like every other word. And like I said, uh, Scientology keeps coming up, but I want to make a note at this point that Philip Cohen has not said the word Scientology like in days. He doesn't. He doesn't use that word. He used all those other words, but he wouldn't use the word. He would not use the word Scientology. Okay. Hey, Sandy. Thanks for being here. Okay. They're going to get to the point where she is like, brings the charges. She goes to the police station, just the charge. At this point, she's overwhelmed with the thought that Scientology is going to come for her. They have been with statements and things, and what they said would happen. Mueller says to her, we're talking about about your views changing about the 2002 incident. In 2018, with regard to your change of view, did that change have anything to do with your views then of Scientology? And she says yes. And he goes on to say, you've been asked a lot of questions about your 2004 report to the Los Angeles Police Department. You've asked if you told any officer in 2004 if you were unclear about some things that happened. That I'm sure I wasn't. And she says, I'm sure I wasn't certain about everything that happened. So she's asking him back, do you mean like, did I admit to not being positive? And Mueller says, yes, that's what I'm asking. And she says, because I'm not sure about everything that happened. And it was a very unusual occurrence. And he says, and you were also concerned at that time about your parents finding out what you were going to be saying happened. And she says, yes. And she was very concerned about telling them. Remember, she was young. Okay. And she said, he asked if she told them, and they said yes. And he said, did you tell your father about the prior incident from 2003? And he says, yes. And then they objected because they don't want the father's reaction to what happened. They don't want reactionary statement. That's a positive. That objection was sustained and went through, and no further question on the father's reaction to the statements made by his daughter in telling him what happened. Okay. And so then they talk about during the cross, they said that at the Lucky Bar in 2002, you had no indication of Mr. Masterson hitting on you, as was a claim by the during the cross that was there flirting, was there this going on? And she said it wasn't like that. And she says, correct, I had no idea. Um and she said, why? She said, because I'd had some bad experiences with him recently. And so, again, when Mueller says, what are those? Again, they object. They don't want this in. They don't want any prior experiences with him. And that kind of goes both ways to the California law uh, uh, in regards to protecting of the victims during other encounters, because it wasn't in the prior pretrial motions on depositions. It wasn't previously disclosed. They're not really going to go. They're not going to go there. Okay, and it was left out, but Mueller gave it a try. With regard to that 2000 report to then Officer Schlegel, you said you did not provide the name of your cousin who she talked to, and who is one of the only non-Scientologists that she spoke to in regards to this incident. Her cousin Rachel, um, and that she had not provided the name to the police, and it's going to come up. And the defense thought that that was odd. And so Mueller is asking her to explain why. And she says, like, well, two reasons. Because she's younger than I am. Not like my child or anything, but I viewed her as childish, as younger. She had just turned 18, and I felt so bad I put her in that place, speaking on it and telling her about it. And I didn't use the word rape at the time. I didn't want to drag her into it. I did not tell, she didn't tell the police her name. But you did provide a list of other names to the officer. And she said yes. So she did list the other Scientologist people that she talked to, her other friends that she spoke to, her family members. She wants to Mueller at this point is going to readdress a statement that she made prior testimony during defense's cross, that her bruising, that at the time that she noticed her bruising was when she was on a plane on her way. She really became uncomfortable and sore and started to like really feel what was going on. This is all within a day, the day of after the event that he's being charged for, and the one that she says she got physically damaged in, and she has the most trauma from. On the plane, she's talking about discovering the bruises and talking about these bruises that she has. Well, she made the statement when she talked about them that she didn't want to believe that they came from him. And he said, why do you believe that? She said, I don't want to believe it was like that it was that medically traumatizing, like, to me. Like, I didn't want to believe that that's where it's at. And I'm wondering if the jury is going to be able to relate to that. I think they will. I think, that's an honest statement from someone. You don't want to believe that this happened to you. Well, that it is, regardless of how upset you are with the person or whatever, that this could happen. That the physical effects of it are right here, and I'm looking at it, and I can't deny it. Okay. She said it would be catastrophic to her medically. It would mean that she couldn't tell the people that she's closest to. She'd have to keep her mouth shut because of these bruises. She didn't want to believe that they came from Masterson. Like, how is she going to come up with a story about what happened to her without indicating him? He said, but did you realize that it was true what happened to you? And she says, yes, I recognize that it was true. But at the same time, she didn't want to, um, it was upsetting to think about what was going to happen now. That she's not going to be able to talk to people honestly about it. She kind of got that feeling from the start about not being able to tell them who and what, and having bruises that she's going to have to explain. You were asked about the 2002 incident, about whether you said no or stop during the vaginal penetration, and you indicated you didn't use those words specifically. And she said correct, because if you'll remember in the beginning, the first incident, she said she was laughing and giggling and not in control. She was very, very drunk. She kept saying we're like brothers and sisters. She kept saying things like, what are we doing? This isn't right. Well, she never said no, and she understands she didn't say no to the actual vaginal portion of the sexual encounter. She didn't. It was, she said no after, for the other part. She said, he said specifically, what words did you use? And she says, oh my God, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? She said, I would go like, pushing hair out of her face and move, and his breath smelled like cigarettes. And I realized it was him when I saw his face, and it would startle me, and that it was him. And we shouldn't, like, this isn't what we should be doing. In that 2002 incident, he says, um, can you tell me what what tone of voice did you say no in? And she gets very emotional. This is probably because they actually have to speak on it. Like, no, like, what was the tone of voice? This must have been very upsetting. She said that it was very emotional. If I recreate it, can I just describe how I said it? Because it was like a plea. It was no, but it was loud. She said she can't really actually try to recreate it, and this is when she gets really, really upset. She pulled away from him that time, and he said, "So was it Masterson who stopped when she said no?" She said, "I stopped it. He did not continue. In other words, he didn't come back after her. She got away a bit, and he didn't come back after her." And that's again going back to that first incident, talking about that again. Mm. Mueller is bringing it up clearly in the redirect to make sure. After, remember, in the redirect in the actual direct by the defense, he just kept bringing up that part of the incident. Okay, and clearly Mueller spends the rest of the day going through the testimony and the issues that were brought up in regards to what she recalled in the reports to the first officer, and then again the conversations with Detective Reyes. They also bring in another Scientologist, Sean Fabos, in who she had direct contact with, told him about the incident afterwards, who became very, very upset about it. Um, this is important because she did retell a lot of these details to him at the time. Um, and he's also on the list to testimony. So we're going to actually hear from him. I'm not going to go much into that cross right there. Um, she talks about she trusted Sean because she had actually reported and recorded on him. She had done auditing on him in Scientology. They were both Scientologists all along. They had a relationship as far as friends go. His family is one of the bigger donators in Scientology currently. His father and mother were just part of a big fundraiser with pictures and costumes and all kinds of stuff that was really all over the news recently. But those Faboses are the parents of Sean Fabos. Okay, but he is on the prosecution's list as witnesses. He is not on the defense's list. Remember, when we talked about the defense's list, it was very small. It only has expert witnesses in toxicology and in memory. Not because she wanted to hang out with Danny Masterson and party. She was there for specific reasons both times. And that can't be contested. And Bree will have to testify to that part of it. But she's also on the defense's list. There's a lot of questions that were brought up by the defense about her stating that she was going in and out of consciousness, and whether she could describe it, and whether she knew, like, how do you know that you were unconscious and things like that. And so Mueller brought that back up again, and he said, do you understand these questions? This process of you being unconscious. And she said no. And Judge Almeida actually spoke up and said, I don't understand the question either. And Mueller said, not sure I do either. What was the process of learning that you've been unconscious? And she says that I would wake up from it in the shower, that the water was off, and things like that. Your statement to Scheigel, he says, you said you had protected some people. She said, crit. And he said, what does it matter? Okay, so like they only touch on it a little bit and then they move right back over to the operative report. And I think this is going to contest to the experts that are coming in regards to memory and the toxicology and about the waking up and on. Because obviously, if you're going in and out of consciousness, I don't know, you know, hmm, maybe some of us have had a little bit too much to drink and we can attest to like what that might feel like where you feel like you lost time. Like if you're in a shower and you feel the water on you, and then the next time you wake up, you're sitting on the shower floor and the water's off. Obviously, you've lost some time. Obviously, you've been unconscious, you know, what you would consider an unconscious state for a few bit. Did you move around? Yeah, but you have no conscious memory of moving around, sitting down, whatever, turning off the water. You have no conscious memory of it. You'll so you consider yourself unconscious during that time. And I think it's a little pedantic and semantic the way that the defense was going at it. And I think Mueller was trying to put a little light on it that she's not really trying to be obscure. That is her understanding of the state that she was in, which No, I think we can all understand. Well, the end of the day, 8, okay, mm, with, of course, Cohen is back on the witness again. They're talking about documents that go back that have been submitted about, knowledge. Documents that go back and forth about understanding of things that were reported in Scientology, things that were reported to the police. And there was one document that Almeida, everybody was going back and forth about. And when they came back at the end of the day, after lunch, from the earlier testimony from Cohen trying to submit this document, it needed to be reviewed. Almeida came back and she said the document, which she believed falls into under prior consistent statement, she's going to allow it. But she says the title of it, and it's just coming from the defense, is the knowledge report of Danny Masterson, and I think it should be redacted. Okay, and probably so. They need to go through it and redact some parts out of it if it's a thing, because of things that may have been asked of him during the reporting in Scientology that may not be, in all fairness, due to this allegation. Okay, and that would protect Danny Masterson's rights, and I kind of believe in him. The court does not need to proffer. Does not need a proffer by Mr. Mueller, because code state law regarding a videotape admitted in the case. She cites the Manson case from 1976, among several others, to where they don't need anything as far as prior from the other side to be able to admit this statement if they do redo it for redaction. Okay. But Cohen's fighting. He wants this in because he says prior consistent statements are allowed when they have been challenged. Mueller is saying it's a prior consistent statement with regards to the keys, and I'm not sure what other parts of the testimony. I agree that it's a prior consistent statement in regards to the keys, but there was a question about where she told an officer about going to a party. So I agree that's a prior consistent statement. But I would like a proffer from Mueller about what parts of testimony that the prior statement addresses. Now that's not uncommon, because they want to make sure if it's being submitted, like what are you using it for, and what are we looking at for here. That's kind of communication back and forth, and asking him to be specific, although unless actually required, he doesn't have to. Okay, police reports don't come in, but by the prior consistent statement doesn't come in as a document, but you ask a question. Did you say this? And use the statement. I went through the statement 3 times, line by line, looked at what was said on direct, and questioned on cross. All right. But Almeida says, nope, he don't need a proffer. Okay. And we can bring it in redacted. Almeida says, I'm sorry. Thank you, but my ruling's going to stand. It's not unusual. I've had cases where a witness gave 5 different statements. It's up to the jury to decide. But to reduce the amount of Scientology jargon, the people will remove the title and the words knowledge report, because that is Scientology terminology. And I reviewed her testimony about telling her father about the 2003 incident. The question was, what was his reaction? I didn't allow that to come in as a fresh complaint witness. He will not come in as he is deceased. That was the ruling on that. Okay. She's very precise. I can't. Mhm. She actually, Judge Almeida. I put this here for her. Okay. I'm telling you, this, Judge Almeida. Thank you. I'm telling you that Judge Almeida is really trying hard to keep this all straight. And I'm going to credit, this is very, very difficult. Yeah. Very, very difficult. I'm going to check questions and put anything you in have now. There's going to be a lot more reporting on day 8. I'm not going to cover everything now because we'll have more updates during the week next week for either Tuesday or Wednesday, and then again on Friday. I'll try to do 2 for you because there's a lot, and I don't want to talk for 2 hours at a time and lose some points on it. I'd rather get it all in 2 separate pieces and make it easier for you. Also, okay. This victim said that she'd been having problems with him at the time, but also didn't want to think that he'd done that to her and didn't have anyone to confide in besides her younger cousin. Yes, that's a true statement. Yes, that's what she's saying. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that, Ox. I didn't mean to. Having to recall his tone and repeat the words she was told can be so re traumatizing that it amazes me that lawyers are allowed to speak to the victim witnesses as aggressively as they do. In this case, they're being held back quite a bit by actual law in California. It is not as aggressive as it could be. I've seen worse. I actually have. Well, yeah, he won't. It was actually the prosecution that asked her to recall that because they were trying to have her recall how you said no and why he stopped. Was it like, trying to like whether it was his decision to stop? And he was making the point that she was the one that stopped the interaction, not him. Even though she said the word no, but he did not continue. And she's being honest. She's saying, no, he didn't come after me after that. I said, no, I pulled away. I said it, pleading kind of, no, it's not, and then moved away and he stopped. And that was incident 1. Okay. In incident 2, he did not stop while she was in and out of consciousness. He did not. Yes, I'll answer this for you, Ox. Yes, and welcome. It's nice to see you here. I haven't been following this trial. I have been stuck on the Brooks trial, which I got to say is funny, and I don't blame you. That at least is a little more entertaining. Way too frustrating for me because I love the law so much. What this guy is doing, absolutely out of his mind. Law and Crime is covering it, and Triggered Limey. If you want some amusement, that chat's pretty hot. Like go over there and follow it over there with Triggered Limey. He's covering it. It's a hot mess. It's funny. It to me legally it doesn't even have anything going on except for I really feel bad. Like just watching him and the judge go at it every day. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating for me. Okay. Masterson is the guy that was on the 70s shows, and he's charged with, yes, he is, by 3 Jane Doe defendants in this case. California, the Los Angeles District Attorney Reinhold Mueller is charging him for Jane Doe 1, Jane Doe 2, and Jane Doe 3 assaults from prior years from 2001 through 2006, I believe. Things. I have to look at the exact report. Well, yeah, from a while ago, and he's charging them all 3 together because that's what he needs to do because of pattern, because of the length of time, even with the amendment or the loop, like what they say, like the exclusions and the reasons that you can extend a statute of limitations, it still falls somewhat outside of it. And this is one of those ways that they still can pursue is if it's all together, the 3 of them together, which is good and bad. It's good that they can pursue the case. Reinhold Mueller obviously believes that he has a strong case, and he would put all 3 of them together, and he's bringing it forward. But for Danny Masterson's side, it also means that he's not going to serve jail time unless they get 2 out of 3 convictions of the 3 allegations that are being made from him by the 3 Jane Does. Okay, just briefly, just to bring you up to date on that, Ox. This trial is going to be going on for a couple more weeks, although Judge Almeida is moving it along quite quickly. Yep, that's who we're talking about. Oh. Tim, welcome. I like the judge. She isn't taking any crap, and she knows how effed up scamatology. Nice wording there, scamatology is. Yeah, I kind of agree. That's a cute little nickname. I like that. I actually like that. You can have strong opinions here. If you listen to any of my stuff, you realize that I do too. We don't coach the language. We just try, like, if anybody, we got a trigger warning up there. There are certain words that are going to be saying. If you type certain words, my YouTube catcher is going to catch it and not put your comment up. Mostly they're about derogatory statements, but the R word is one of them because it immediately throws me into YouTube scrutiny, and they have to scrub the whole video to allow, and they may just take it down. And I would prefer not to have it taken down, because I'll put the time into it. I want it out there. Why bother, right? Um, is there okay? Here's a good question, and I'm going to address this. This comes up a lot whenever I talk about this case. In some of the other cases that I am actually looking into, that all involve statute of limitation in consent. Okay. And here's the thing. Is there solid proof against him? That depends on what you call solid proof. If you mean DNA evidence, physical evidence of anything from the occurrence that happened, too old. No. These women did not go forward immediately with their claims. They did not. So there was not a rape kit done. There was not anything like that. Okay. They have the testimony of everybody around them. They have the testimony of what happened on the days of, people that saw things, people that didn't. They have police reports later on. They have evidence of harassment from Scientology. They have evidence of interviews that happened with Scientology reporting it to them. Okay. They have their family's testimony, their friends' testimony, their own testimony, the police later that they went to with the investigation. But no, physical evidence is not there. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's going to be difficult. That is a bone of contention, because we don't have a slam dunk. No one has DNA, right? We don't have fingernail clipping, the whole thing. We don't have a kid. We don't have that. Okay. I know you ask only because you don't know, but it's a very good question, and everyone keeps asking it. There is a whole big push and pull out on the internet about it, and it should be addressed. And don't ever apologize for bringing a question forward, Ox. That's what we're here for. There are two sides to everything, and everybody's going to believe one way or another about everything. I don't keep opinions away. Do I keep rudeness and attacking away? Yes, but never opinions and never questions. Okay. So feel free. Quite a few years, Ox. The accusation happened in Scientology almost right away with all of them, but they were prevented from going legally to the police to press charges. And that is part of the claims here. They got a civil suit. All three Jane Does have a civil suit with Scientology named for keeping them from coming forward. They actually left Scientology afterwards. They were active Scientology members at the time of the assaults. So was Danny Masterson. Yep, Scientology. This is true, Tim. These cases did not need DNA. They were also done after. They didn't need DNA in the Cosby case or the Epstein case. And I hear you. Like, truth is truth. Sometimes, yeah, but is it a fact that they don't have it? Yes. And we're going to have to, keep reporting that. No, they don't have it. Okay. All right. I agree with you that the way that things get tried in social media is not actually good either. And I'm hoping that Danny Masterson doesn't. But his defense is really like pushing that mark about not mentioning Scientology and all of this. I mean, he's a lifelong Scientologist. How can you not mention it? When they knew about this, they were told about this by all three women. Okay. Yes, Robsky, I saw that, and you can see me Sunday about that. We'll be talking about it for sure. This is I'll put the message up. Yes. Off topic, Trump's legal team responds to the subpoena. Yes. Yeah, we're going to go into political review this week. It will be not just Trump, it'll be a lot of stuff. And you'll see why I titled it the way I did. Man, it's a mess. There's shenanigans. But we'll be talking about that Monday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Not Monday, Sunday, rather. I misspoke. Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on my channel. I do have it up on the channel already. I've actually scheduled the next 2 days for you guys in advance. Okay. Now, I'm going to end up, it's been an hour and a half. There will be more. I will readdress some little things that I left out today from day 7 and 8 when I do day 9 and 10 on Tuesday or Wednesday. Okay. I like to go over all the articles as they come out. There's little things. Okay. Yes, Sleet, it was political. Go look at the thumbnail. I had some fun. Yeah, I'm having a go. It was fun. It is. It's shenanigans. It's poo. It's a bunch of poo. There's so much of it going on, and it needs to be addressed. But High Inquisitor and I will be there Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard. But anyway, I welcome your questions. If you have more things that you want to know about what happened ahead of time, you can DM me. I'll try to address it in the next update. And thank you so much for your time. I'm glad to have you all here chatting. I know we didn't chat as much with the questions, but there was a lot to get out, and I will try to address you more. If you have things that want to be talked about, please DM me. Okay. Tim, once again, Scientology shoots itself in the foot. There's no way they come out of this looking good. This is true, and this is why the new defense team, which is not his original defense team that entered Scientology into the picture by submitting the Book of Ethics in defense as to why things were delayed. Not a good move. They made Scientology part of the picture, and now the new defense team is saying we can't talk about Scientology. That's a whole nother thing. Like, it's not going to happen. They are part of it, They are, Yep. So on that, you all have a great night. I will see you tomorrow I will be at the Shills Operator Starsky stream with updates on Ukraine. There's been a lot of stuff going on there. I really like doing that stream over there. Very informative. Operator Starsky lets you know what's going on. He's got a great sense of humor. He's so personable, and he's real boots on the ground. Like, he's there. He's telling us he's there from the Ukraine side, because that's the side. That's the side. Okay. And then that night, Saturday night, we will have our regular, what the actual, fiddlesticks, fudgery, farmer gone wrong, all that stuff. Yeah, we'll be doing that around 11 o'clock, I believe, on Saturday night. And I hope to see a bunch of you there. Looking for panel people, crew. Crew, if you want on, DM me. You all know who you are. Yeah, you want to be there. And new people also, you're interested in having a little to say on social media shenanigans and all the stuff that goes on, for the last week, all over the place. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, the regular media, political, all of it. We cover all of it. But that's the snarky show. That you must bring your sense of humor. You must bring your sense of humor. If you forgot it, turn around, go back and get it. Okay, do not show up to that show without one. Do not show up to that show without one, because we're gonna go. Okay, and on that, again, on Sunday, I will be doing political review with High Inquisitor, if I can keep saying it without choking laughing. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, serious stuff, that just needs a little bit of twist, stuff we really do have to talk about, that is going on, that people need to start looking at. Remember, no vote, no voice. Okay. So see you at 1 o'clock for that one at Eastern Standard. And later that evening, we will be doing Uncalled For, as far as it is scheduled, as far as I know. It should be at 6 o'clock on the show's channel with Amy Hogan. I love doing that show also. And hopefully I'll see you all there too. Well, on that, I'm going to say goodnight. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. I'm doing the YouTube things, and subscribe if you haven't. Okay. On that, have a good night.